And good afternoon. This afternoon, live on the KPOO Live Line, we've got the Bay Area's very own George Duke with us this afternoon. And we'd like to welcome George Duke to KPOO. Hey.
It's good to be here.
Hey, it's great. Good to have you here this afternoon.
Good to be back home.
Back home. You've been away for a while.
Yeah. Yeah, miss home.
All right. So you're still out there performing, huh?
Oh, absolutely. I'm not. I'll do this till I check out.
Oh my goodness.
I have no. That's not going to happen for a while. I got a lot to do and a lot to say. So I'm still playing and touring live all the time.
So doing two shows, is that kind of hard to do?
It's okay because the shows are not that long. I'm used to actually playing 2 hour, plus shows. Generally when I do concerts, in concert halls. So to do an hour and 15 or an hour seems actually short to me. Mm-hmm. I just begin to break a sweat. So actually it's not that bad. Probably the hardest thing is after you get off stage, I go out and I try to meet everybody, do a meet and greet, and we sell merch and CDs and all of that. And by the time I get through with that, it's time to go back on stage. That kind of will take it out of you after a few days, But the basic show part of it, no, it's fun. I love it. There's nothing better than playing in front of people,
And your band?
Well, I have my old buddy Mike Manson on bass, who's from Chicago, who makes his own records. He's a phenomenal bassist, plays upright as well as electric, and he's been with me to San Francisco, to the Bay Area many, many times. Big guy that plays big. I got a Japanese guitar player. His name is Takeshi Akamoto, who's also been there with me. He's currently with Ziggy Marley, and great player. And I also have a young guy named Henry McDaniel on drums, who won the Stanley Clark Scholarship at MI here in Music Institute here in L.A. 21 years old, has been working all last year with the Clark Duke Project. And I tell you, within that year, man, he has grown into an incredible drummer.
So you mentioned you're selling CDs between shows. So you're still putting out CDs?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yes. Yeah, I have my own label called BPM, Big Piano Music.
Yes.
And it's distributed through the Concord label. And we put out a bunch of records, and I'm working on a new one right now. Don't have a specific title for it yet. But got a lot of great people on it. Rochelle Farrell singing on it. Got Christian McBride playing bass along with Michael Manson and other people. Got a special bonus cut with Tina Marie. I've got Jeffrey Osborne, Layla Hathaway, just on and on and on. Just B.B. Winans is on the record. A whole lot of people. It's great.
That's incredible. So you've been performing for quite some time. Can you name some of the people you've worked with over the years?
Oh, yeah. Well, it's funny. I just heard from Anita Baker. That was one.
All right.
just spoke with her on the phone. She's coming out to L.A. to do something. And Shantae Moore. I've worked with Jeffrey Osborne. I've worked with Barry Manilow, Miles Davis, Cannonball Adderley. It spans the Frank Zappa. It expands the genre-wise. Man, everything from pop music to outside jazz, including Sonny Rollins and so forth and so on. And the Brazilian folks.
Right. So I know
Nascimento and Flora Prima Ayrton, who play in the Bay Area a lot, or used to.
Right. Like you said, you have a number of styles of music you've been doing, jazz, Latin, R&B stuff.
Sure.
In the 70s, you got into a funk thing. How did that thing happen for you?
Well, it happened in a big way. It's something that was generic. I mean, it happened. It happened. Let me put it this way: it happened organically. Essentially, I was in D.C. and out of a drum solo, my drummer then, who was named Ndugu, he started playing this groove, and then I started playing this bass line. And I'm telling you, man, as soon as I hit 3 notes of this bass line, the crowd went crazy. And I was like, really? And then so I looked at the bass player and said, well, play something. And then that's kind of how this whole funk thing for us was born. And it just continued because it was nothing that we said, well, we're going to sit down and write some funk for somebody. No, it really wasn't like that. And so it was really generic to what we did.
Were you listening to funk bands or artists at that time when you started doing funk at all?
Well, yeah, I absolutely. Well, Sly had always been, one of my favorites.
Yes.
From the Bay Area. I love Sly and the Family Stone. And of course, I listened to James Brown, but I had a thing about what Sly was doing was different than everybody else. And then the first time I heard Mothership Connection by Parliament Funkadelic, it was over.
All right.
I said, I don't know what this is, but it's funny. It kind of reminded me of the other side of Frank Zappa. And I said, whatever this is, I want to incorporate it in what I do. And that's kind of what happened. But it didn't happen because I sat down and wrote something. It just happened just magically out of just whatever we were playing on stage, we took it into the studio, and it became a couple of big hits. We had Dookie Stick,
Yes.
Reach For It,
Right.
all of that. It was a wonderful period of time musically.
Now, not too long ago, you did come out with a CD called Dookie Treats, and that kind of favored a lot of the funk stuff, and it brought back memories of George Duke from the old days.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to go back and use some of the instruments and some of the vibes that we did back in the past. And also my later album, which was actually a couple of years old now, called Deja Vu,
Yes.
kind of a continuance of that, but more of the jazz side. And there's still some funk on that. Don't get me wrong. I don't abandon that.
All right.
But, it's all a continuance of that continuum, so to speak.
All right, we're talking with George Duke. So how did a young kid from the Bay Area get involved in music? Yourself, speaking of yourself, of course.
Well, when I was 4 years old, my mom took me to see Duke Ellington, and that kind of did it for me. I don't know, maybe it's because the guy's name was Duke. Maybe you didn't see a lot of people of color you didn't hear him on the radio, or you certainly didn't see him on television. Not much. And this guy he spoke the King's English, but at the same time he was speaking the language I heard on the street. And I liked what he was doing. He seemed to be in control. He was doing something with his hands, which I later found out he was playing the piano. And every now and then what I thought he was waving, and all these other guys that were on the stage started playing. I later found out he was conducting. That got me into music. I said, I don't know what he's doing, Mom, but I want to do that. And several years later, she bought a piano for me, and I've been playing since I was 7 years old.
Wow, that's incredible. So if you can remember at that time, what was most of the kids around your age listening to?
What were they listening to? Oh man, they were listening to R&B radio.
Yes.
I forgot. I won't name any name, but there was a station up in the Bay Area that played all the R&B stuff, all the stuff from Motown.
Yes.
Everything Smokey Robinson, and the Miracles, all of that kind of stuff, and I heard on the radio. But what really interested me, and I like that because I heard it every day. But I found some records in my uncle's room one day, and it was 78, and I put it on, and I heard this Woody Herman record. I said, man, I don't hear that on the radio, and I just started hearing some other music, and it drew me in. I mean, I like the R&B thing, but when I started hearing some of the instrumental stuff that Ray Charles did, some of that, Les McCann, that kind of thing, it kind of had that churchy kind of vibe, but still it was jazzy. It was different than what I heard on normal quote-unquote R&B radio. I can't tell you why, but that's what drew me in.
Were you a teenager at that time?
No, I was just before teenage. I was probably 10, 11, 12.
Wow, that's incredible.
And actually, I went to San Rafael, because I grew up in Marin City. I went to San Rafael, and I said, after I found out all this, I told the guy, I took the bus and went to the store, and I told the guy, he says, can I help you? I said, yes, I like some jazz. He says, well, a lot of guys seem to like look under D, they seem to like this guy named Davis. I said, Davis, okay. So I went back and I scrolled through these LPs, and I came up on this funny-looking cover with a dark cover with this guy with a mouthpiece in his mouth, and it said "Kind of Blue," Miles Davis. So I said, okay, let me take this one. I took it, bought it, got back on the bus, went back to my room, and it changed my life.
So did you start a group or anything at that time, or what?
No, it came later. During high school, I had a band called the Jazz Co-op with some guys from the neighborhood, a drummer out of Sausalito and a bass player out of Marin City, and who was actually our athletic director. But he played bass as well. And we started doing gigs around the area. We had about 5 or 6 tunes that we would play all night long, the same tune, maybe in a different key with a different tempo. And I began, doing gigs in high school, rallies, and so I had a little band all the way up until I decided to join Frank Zappa. And of course, I had a band with Al Jarreau for many years at the Have No Club on Divisadero.
So how did recording start for you? Recording and producing other artists?
Well, essentially, for me, recording started back in really early. I was playing at the Jazz Workshop, and some guys from Germany came in to see Les McCann, and it was a Monday night, so he was off. So it was me playing, and they decided to stay anyway, and they offered me to make a record, and that was in 1966. It didn't come out till 1968, but it was an awful record.
It was just under George Duke or what?
Yeah, I shouldn't. I'm not going to tell you because I don't want nobody to get that record. It was terrible.
Come on.
Terrible record. It was called the George Duke Quartet, presented by the Jazz Workshop in 1966. Not a very good record, but I developed a relationship with these guys and did several records. And eventually, when I moved to Los Angeles and started working with Jean-Luc Ponty and Frank Zappa, I began getting calls from everybody from Frank Zappa to Cannonball Adderley, to Gerald Wilson, to Quincy Jones, who would come by the clubs, to see us play. And then that kind of launched my session playing and meeting these musicians who had some name value that could help me. And that's really what happened.
Now, you produced a lot of people over the years, too.
Oh, yeah.
Can you name some of those artists you produced?
Yeah, well, some of the ones that I named earlier, absolutely. I've worked with Anita, and I just finished an album with Jeffrey Osborne.
Oh, just finished.
Which is which I believe just came out, which is called A Time for Love. It's a wonderful record where he's singing standards. Very different kind of record for Jeffrey. Shante Moore I've worked with, of course, Barry Manilow, which is on the different side, Miles Davis, a lot of different people.
Wow, that's incredible. It sounds like you've been doing it for quite some time. Is there anybody out there that you would love to work with or produce?
Well, things have changed. It's a younger demographic now, and generally they use producers that are, of their age group, so to speak. However, I think there's a lot that I could offer some of these younger singers. But it's fine. I'm working a lot. I've got no qualms about any of that. But my interest would be in working with someone that wants to push the musical envelope. I'm not kind of interested in necessarily doing the ultra conservative thing. I'm not interested in necessarily, trying to get the next hit record that radio is going to play. I'm at this point in my career, I'm really interested in music.
Hey, that sounds great.
There it is.
All right, so we're talking with George Duke, and we're not going to keep him that much longer. So, what was it like working with Cannonball Adderley? He was one of those great names from the past.
And let me tell you, McCann was like my daddy. He was like a big guy, jovial, very, very, very intelligent. Knew everybody that I ever loved in music. I mean, people. Look, Bill Cosby used to come by, Sarah Vaughan, Carmen McRae, Freddie Hubbard, Joe Williams, all the classic jazz musicians, singers would come by and play and come backstage and talk, and I used to just like a sponge, just soak it in. I mean, Cannon was an amazing musician who didn't really care about style. He just played, whether it was straight ahead jazz, whether it was soul, as he called it at the time. It didn't matter. It was all music, and that's kind of why I do what I do, because it's, what do you call it, beyond borders, so to speak, almost the Duke Ellington, to take his phrase. And that's kind of the way I look at music. I mean, categories are for labeling things. I mean, it should have nothing to do with what a musician creates, if they're capable of doing it. So
recording has changed over the years. Has it gotten easier, working with computers and things like that, or is it harder?
Well, it's absolutely made things easier. I don't know whether it's made things more musical is another matter. Depends on who's doing it. But definitely, I mean, I wouldn't want to get rid of computers in creating music any more than I want to get rid of refrigerators in terms of keeping my food fresh, so I can eat it on a different day.
Yes.
So I think technology is a wonderful thing, and it just has to be used correctly.
Right. So if you say you're driving down the street, you're listening to the radio or something, and you hear George Duke's song come on, do you listen?
Yeah, I do listen because I want to know how it translates over the air. It's definitely important because it may alter the way I EQ something or master a particular thing, and I learn something every time I hear it.
All right, and we're going to wrap it up now. What do you think you would be doing now if it wasn't for music?
Nothing.
No,
if it wasn't for music, I'd be involved in music on another level. I'd be teaching it. There would be another level or something in music, but more than likely I would be teaching. More than likely. Or in some company, that's involved with music. It would be involved with music, though, for sure. I couldn't see myself working at Ralph's and just humming a tune.
All right.
You know, I want to be making the music that they play at Ralph's.
I got you. When you're not performing or making records or putting out CDs or whatever, what do you like to do? What does George Duke like to do?
Well, I like to. I'm always watching, the basketball games, football games. I'm a Raider fan. I'm on the Oakland side. Sorry, San Francisco, but San Francisco got a great team. So y'all, I mean, I got a very, very good shot. I like the team. Anyway, I'm a Raider fan. I got my Raider hat that I'm wearing up there. I know I'm gonna make San Francisco folks mad, but that's what it is. It's still Bay Area,
right? For sure.
And we went to the Raider games when they were down here in L.A. I like to go to movies, and other than that, I'm probably in here writing songs. What's that song? They're writing songs of love, not for me. I'm in here writing or just relaxing,
Right. And I got to ask you one thing else. When it's time to put out a song, where do you get your ideas from? How do you come up with a song?
Well, that's a spiritual thing. I believe that a lot of songs are a gift from the Creator. I believe that a lot of the songs are, they come from everyday life. If I get an idea, many times if my mind is open, especially early in the morning when I really don't want to get up, I'll get an idea, but I've made myself now realize that that's a gift and I got to get up and deal with it.
All right.
And so that's kind of what that is, but it comes from everywhere, everyday life, looking at things and viewing it through my eyes and trying to tell the truth. The main thing is to keep it real and tell the truth musically. I don't mean just lyrically, but I mean tell the truth for what's in your heart and what you're being led to give, to offer.
All right, there he is. That's George Duke with us this afternoon. So, George Duke, I'd like to thank you for checking in this afternoon.
Okay.
All right, thanks. Hey, you got it. Thanks. That's George Duke.